Welcome to a special weekday afternoon episode of Games with Dave. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by fellow streamer, interviewer, and GM, DJ Baker. I never asked you how to say your last name. Is it Zakala?
Zakala, yeah.
Is that the correct way or no?
It is, yep. Baker-Zakala.
All right, I did get it right. All right,
you're
I
good.
meant to ask you that. DJ is one of the fellows behind One Shot's Tavern, a TTRPG live play and interview channel, I believe I get. Yep. That is much like me, focuses on various game systems from kick-ass designers. Welcome to the show, DJ. I'm so psyched to have you on.
I'm glad to be here. Anytime I get a chance to just like not be in the interview seat is fantastic. It's it's great.
I have yet to be in that position, but I think, well, no, that's not true. I did do one, but I think I would be like weirded out a little bit because I'm so used to asking the questions.
Yeah.
But so when did you get into gaming? And I guess you could say the best way is, what was your gateway game that got you into playing RPGs?
Okay, so we're gonna journey back almost 15 years at this point. I started in high school. I was not super into gaming. Well, I was like a console gamer. That was the most gaming that I had done until I met my co-host Andrew. He had me go hang out with him and some of his buddies to play Dungeons and Dragons for the first time. It was 3.5. It was hard and I didn't understand it, right? It was fun. I had a blast, but I was getting frustrated because all of the things of like, cool, the game master rolled the hit. Okay, that's a 18 to hit you. Does that hit your armor class? And I remember going, well, I don't get to do any. Right.
Oh no.
Yeah, I was like, because I didn't understand. And so I was just like, oh, cool. And then it got around to my turn, and I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna swing, and that's a natural 1, which is funny because I actually did just roll a natural 1 while doing that. And I was just like, oh, I don't understand this. But over a few sessions, obviously, it grew on me. I started to understand, and then that was around the time that we switched over to Pathfinder, first edition. I didn't even know that 4th edition existed. I'm actually kind of bummed that I didn't know that 4th edition existed, because I know a lot of people are like, oh, 4th edition was terrible. They had to backtrack the whole thing. I've recently been reading up on a lot of 4th edition stuff, and I'm just like, this isn't terrible. I don't mind this at all, actually. And then you start to see the roots of where 5th edition came in. I switched over to 5th edition around the time of like the actual play boom. So like you had Critical Role pop up, and you had the official Dungeons and Dragons stuff. You had Acquisitions Incorporated, and all of these people started getting sponsored by D&D Beyond. And I have ADHD, autism. I have a hard time teaching myself games when it's just me. Having that tool really just made it a home run for me, because all of a sudden the most complicated part of Dungeons and Dragons, creating the character and leveling them up, made sense to me. And from there, like, I played Dungeons and Dragons for like the next 10 years.
Nice.
I still am a game master for, like, I'm a game master for hire. I mostly run Dungeons and Dragons for that. But it was a couple years ago that Andrew started to talk a little bit about, like, hey, there's other systems out there. Like, we should start trying them. And he started to get into other games. And then it was last year officially in January when we started Cypher System. And I fell in love with Cypher System. Monty Cook Games, Monty Cook helped design a lot of, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D, all of it, 3.0. And so I fell in love with Cypher System just because of the rules. It's like it's complex, but it's rules light in a
I've
way.
never played it, so I'll have
Oh,
to
I
check
will have
that
to
out.
have you on because been meaning to do the Learn to Play Cypher System episode, and
Totally in.
I keep putting it off, and I should definitely have you on for it because it is so much fun. So I think I rambled enough through that question.
Yeah, you did a great job. So I think you actually do. We were talking about this before. We'll go back to you being a professional GM in a little bit because I do want to talk about that, or a GM for hire, however you choose to say it. And one thing I have noticed with you is you do a fabulous job, for lack of a better term, of TikToking. I'm old, so that's how I say it, and I'm sure
Yeah.
it's the improper way of saying it. But did that come naturally to you, or was it more of a learn as you go
Yeah.
type thing?
It was definitely not a natural start for me. In the beginning, it was hard. It's funny because I went to school both my junior year and senior year of high school, and 4 or 5 years of like community college, for marketing and advertising, as well as video and like media. Um, but then I didn't use that like everybody else who often goes to college, and then they get disenchanted by it, and they're just like, I'm not gonna do it. So I felt really out of practice with the audiovisual side of media. I still would take photos, like doing photography and stuff. Um, but I've never I've always been an adamant social media poster, right? Like I was always like the person to get into arguments and just have a heck of a time on Twitter and Facebook, and then I kind of like started to fall out of that and not like that too much. And so when I started with TikTok, I don't know what it was. It was hard, and I started it specifically so I could advertise my services as a game master for hire on Start Playing
Nice.
Games. And I was like, cool, I'm having a hard time getting customers in order to build up my games, so that when people just come across me, they go, oh, this guy's run a ton of games and he's highly rated, right? So I needed to get to that level, which meant I needed to do it differently than other people were. Um, Everyone else in the community, they were kind of like, maybe they'd make a Reddit post or they'd run a paid ad. I don't like to spend money, and so I wasn't going to pay for an ad if I didn't have to. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to build up an audience, and I am going to get myself to the point that like people can go, oh, cool, he seems nice. Let's hop in a game with him. 1,000 followers, which is, for those of you who are not TikTok savvy and not a part of the TikTok world, that is the magical point in which you get to put a link in the bio without having to have a business account. We tried to have a business account for a little while. Well, I did. And then I realized that it was harder to get people to engage with it. Right. So I was like, all right, I'm switching just back to a personal account. I'm doing this the slow way to do this, and it ended up working. And while we're not like rocketing to fame or success, I really love the community that we've been able to build through it. It's a lot nicer to just like have 400 people that I'm mutuals with, that it's like cool. Even if you're the only people who see this video, that feels worth it. Andrew approached me because I'm a full-time game master for hire. I have time, hence why I'm probably so good at the TikTok. I post all the time because I was trying to follow the rules of growing your account, which was like 3 times a day, and trying to vary the lengths and what you're doing. I don't do that anymore. Now it's probably about once a day. Don't really need to do the 3 times a day anymore. And Andrew approached me. He was like, "Hey, I'm a stay-at-home dad. You're working as a game master for hire. Why don't we finally just sit down and do a podcast? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? That sounds like fun. And so we did. And that really kind of like gave the account purpose. Right. It gave me something more to talk about than, hey, I've got this game posted and here's a game master tip. And it's been fun ever since. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, you do a great job. So
I appreciate it. It's nice to hear, honestly.
so we've talked a little bit already with the first couple bits about you being a GM for hire.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about doing that, and how can someone get in touch with you if they'd like to book you for a game?
Yeah. So it's funny because I started game mastering for hire, or attempting, over a year ago. It was about a year and 4 months or so. And it was because I came across an ad on TikTok for Start Playing Games. People can find me there. Or they can go to oneshotstavern.com. I have my game master for hire profile and like my personal links section. But oh, it's just really nice. I kind of was trying to attempt it when I was working at a medical device company. But my schedule wasn't really allowing it. And it was like, cool, like this is definitely a thing I want to do. Hopefully I can get my schedule changed so that I can. Well, then I got fired. And all of a sudden my schedule was completely wide open. And it's real hard to find jobs for some reason. It's crazy.
It really is, despite like all the
Yeah.
places you'll drive by that say now hiring, now hiring, now
Yep.
hiring. Like, I think I can fill you in more after, but like I'm in the same boat as you were now. And
yeah, it was rough. I was, I don't know. I'm 32, I think 33 next Sunday. And ever since I was like 14, I just walk into a place, I hand in the resume or the application, or I'd apply online, and I just never had an issue. It was always just like, cool, I'm gonna start at this new place. And then all of a sudden, last year I lost my job, and I was just like, oh, this is how many job applications have I put in? 100? Oh,
wow.
And it's like, I know the problem is my resume, right? And like adjusting my resume to be whatever the AI that pulls resumes is looking for.
Right.
But I have ADHD. I'm not going to fix my resume. So I took that opportunity to start, posting games. And luckily, my wife was extremely supportive about it. She was like, okay, cool. I'm working at a car dealership. Things are going all right. Like, we're not like swimming in money or anything, but like we were paying the bills. And she's like, if you can do this and you can make about what you were making at your previous job, absolutely. So that's what we did. I
awesome.
did it one game at a time until I hit 6 games a week, which I thought was going to be my limit. Now I'm going to be doing 8, I think, soon. And it's just a wonderful process. And if people are listening and they're like, oh, I haven't even thought about doing Start Playing Games or game mastering for hire because like it seems hard, you can do it. You really can. It is so much fun. The relationships you build with like complete and total strangers who become your players, become your friends, and they're happy to pay you in order to like, they're like, hey, I get to hang out with you every week. We get to have the best time with some of the best games I've ever played. And like, you show up and you don't cancel. And it's nice. And like I still run a couple of non-paid games for friends and stuff, but like even my like actual friends, like the people that I know in person have started to join my paid games. And so because they're like, oh yeah, you know, I want to see what this is about, and it's like, oh, this is great. So yeah, start playing games, fantastic. OneShotsTavern.com, you can find me there.
Cool, and I've got it on the little ticker below. I don't know if you can see it from
Oh yep,
your
I
end.
do.
The One Shots Tavern, and I put it in the description as well. So hopefully some more people will track you down.
Hope so. I'm about to be posting a Dragon Heist game.
Nice.
So
speaking of games, you actually have your Eye of the Tyrant Season 2 coming up.
yeah, so
Did
we're
that already
working
start?
on the planning for that currently. We have some spots that are open. I've started to narrow down some of the new cast for it. We have one of the returning members is coming. Basically, it was a scheduling thing, and now what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to record all of the episodes in 3 weekends, where it's just we'll do like 3 episodes a weekend, and that way they're up to date on it, they're not, you know, lost. And we're planning on doing around 4 weekends. We're planning on doing 12 episodes, and then we want to have that completely out and handed off to an editor, which will probably be me. But you don't know. Yeah, who knows, right? And from basically go, okay, cool, polish this, you know, do the sound design, you know, make it a little bit better. That way, you know, we can be a little bit more consistent this time around. I found that trying to keep people for a weekly game, especially if it's not live, is unnecessary, and also means that it's likely that they're not going to be able to stick around for as long. But the person that was kind of involved with the main narrative is going forward. So basically the story is going to continue. It's just we're gonna have 3 new faces with 1 old face. I'm excited.
Pretty cool. That sounds pretty fun. I don't know. It's funny because I'm like, wow, when you say you're playing 3 straight games in a weekend, and then I look at my interview schedule and I'm like, dude, I'm doing the same
Yeah.
crazy ass thing.
Yeah, exactly. It seems like a lot. And I was talking to Wes from Roll for Impact. I don't know if you've come across Roll for Impact and the Stranger Pod at all yet.
I have not. I'm writing that one down.
But Wes, he's going to be on next Monday's episode of One Shots Tavern. I was talking to Wes about like how he records, because he doesn't have people who like are typically going to be your actual players, and it's basically just recording a ton all at once to make sure everybody's fresh, and you know they remember everything that's going on and they're engaged. And then that way, you know, you record those 3 maybe 4 episodes in a couple days, and you know the next time you record it's another 4 episodes or 3 or 4 episodes in order to get 20 episodes recorded. And you have a nice consistent you know, release schedule. But the Stranger Pod is amazing. Wes does this really cool thing where it's kind of lightly animated, and he just does such a good job. So
Yeah, I gotta
that's where
check
I
it
got the
out.
inspiration. Yeah, absolutely, it's beautiful.
Nice. Now, with the games you stream, for anyone that tunes in later on, what days do you stream your games?
So we don't really have a set day, because we have a rotating cast of our friends who are going to be playing in some of the game demo streams. So it's really depends on the people. I know that's not great for streaming, is to not have a schedule. But what we really wanted to do with it is give people a chance to watch it live, if they can. That way they can be in chat and have fun with it. actually use things like our TikTok live access and our Twitch Twitch and YouTube and Instagram and all of that. And then what we're going to do is we record the audio using Squadcast. So we can have a high quality audio. And then I'm going to take the video, I'm going to rip the audio from it, and then I'm going to put the better audio underneath it. And then the better version of it will live on our Patreon as a bonus episode. Whereas everybody else can still go to like our Twitch and YouTube and see the video on demand of it. It's not as polished as what is going to be going on our Patreon. So Tuesdays are usually my best days for that sort of thing. Monday nights and the occasional weekend is usually when I try to schedule things like that. So.
Nice. So you're as busy as I am. I think I showed
all
you
the
my
time
schedule for like
yeah.
the next like month and a half. With leaving my job, I was just like, hey, I've got all this free time, kind of like you were with the GM for Hire. And now I'm just like, well, I may as well book some interviews. I wasn't expecting like 25 of them, but
yeah, I mean, you're doing better than we are, but we've just been so busy with everything else that we piled on our plate. Like we're consistent with our episodes. We don't have a lot of them as planned out as we would have liked, and now we're starting to get into that where we're starting to record our episodes ahead of time. Now that things are dying down and we're finishing up our individual projects and we can focus more on this, it's a lot. We did a interview with Bruce Cordell, Monty Cook Games, and formerly of TSR, worked with Monty Cook on old D&D stuff. That was kind of one of our bigger interviews that we did, and that was a lot of fun. But my favorite interviews are always going to be the people who have launched a Kickstarter for some indie game, because like they're just so excited to show you what they have. It's the best.
It really is, because the enthusiasm they bring to the show, for their project. Like there'll be times that people will be like, oh man, I don't want to talk too much. And I'm like, dude, go, like just run with it. And I'll have people that like, I'll have the questions like what I sent to you of like a touch points, and they'll answer everything in like a 30-minute talk about their game, because I'll just let them go and not interrupt them, try my best to not interrupt them. And then I'm like, ooh, what do I do now? And then I'm like, well, that sounds really awesome. And I'm a great active listener, but like you should see my notes. Like, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's like chicken scratch of all my notes that I'll take while someone's talking and then kind of try to go back to it. But
Andrew's our like our note taker, our planner. It's funny because Andrew and I often we kind of like changed up the format of how we do things a lot. Where like sometimes it'll be both him and I interviewing someone, sometimes it'll be him, sometimes it'll be me. But he is a very organized person mentally, right? In a way that I could never be.
I can relate.
He wants to plan out the questions fully all the time, which is a great way of doing things. But I'm more off the cuff and probably won't look at my own questions that I am supposed to be asking people, because I just want to have that conversation every time where I'm just, like, okay, cool. We'll get to your project in a second. Let's hear about you. Like, what's your favorite thing to do? What is all of, and so I bring what I would say would be the conversational side to the podcast. Andrew also is good at like, playing off the questions I ask and like riffing off of what the people say. But that's like my favorite style of interviewing someone, is just having a talk.
I could not do off the cuff. Like, I think I'm just too awkward, and my me with my questions is because of my ADHD. Like, I'll think of them all through the week, kind of jot them down on something I'm carrying, or text myself, and then I put them all in a list, and I'm like, well, let's hope this works. And so far it is.
My ADHD is fully the stereotypical, I have a project due tomorrow, I better start it. I got a little cocky with high school and college where it worked. It could be a little bit more well planned out. I'm getting there. Andrew introduced me to this thing called Trello. I had no idea what it is. It's essentially a planning app that's like, okay, cool. So here's the introduction stage of the idea. Here's what you need to do. And so it's like a to-do list that has different stages of completion that you drag it over to each spot. So that way you open up Trello for the day, you look at it, you say, what do I need to do? Okay, cool. I need to make sure I order business cards, order the business cards. All right, it's completed, I have not been able to adopt it. He's great at it. I add things for him on it, and I think that's making our relationship work really well.
Nice.
But yeah, it's sometimes I'm just a little more chaos,
Yeah, I have to have the structure, or the wheels fall off the bus, right? So to speak. And so we've brought up Andrew a couple times. Do you find it helps to push you to do more, I guess you would say, or make you do things more intensely having a co-host versus being a solo guy?
Here's the really nice thing. Andrew and I talked about this a lot lately. Especially when we were talking about like how we want to do our format and like what kind of shows we want to do and stuff. And I was talking to him, and he had said something. He's like, I could do this podcast without you. I wouldn't. And he's like, you could do this podcast without me. And I was like, yeah, but I probably wouldn't. Right. We know that we're capable of doing all of this work solo. But we both really are good at like motivating each other and like saying, hey, what if we do this? Whereas he's not like the type of person who wants to contact people for interviews and stuff. I'm not either. I'm just good at it. And so he'll be like, hey, can you reach out to a bunch of people, some of our friends, find some guests, find some games. And I'll do that. And then he does the things that I don't think I could ever do. And that would be like the design and of course the organized thinking and keeping everything on track. Cause having me go off script and just kind of, have a conversation forever is great to listen to, but I would miss a lot of the information that, should be talked about. And so it's his job to make sure that that information is talked about. And so it's a really good dynamic, a pretty healthy dynamic too, as far as like having a business partner goes, where we are able to complement each other and our skill sets well. And also to kind of like push each other to do stuff like, hey, have you finished the design on that business card? No, not yet. Well, Gen Con is in 2 weeks, so it's great. So yeah, I would say absolutely. I probably personally would be doing things a lot more low and slow if it was just me, which would just be like, oh, cool. I maybe would have a regular schedule, or maybe it would be a monthly podcast. But because I have this partner like that is fantastic, we're able to release something almost every week. We've missed like a couple weeks just because of life and being busy.
It happens.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I missed months, and it was more because, and we can kind of dig into this a little bit more maybe, but my depression was just bottomed out.
Yep.
And one of my friends was like, dude, you got to get back to doing interviews. This was not too long ago. He goes, I just want to see you do a couple interviews. I'm like, all right. So now I've got all these booked, and it's like, I feel great doing it.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do alone.
It is.
Let me tell you.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Even the episode, like I do maybe a few episodes here and there where it's just me talking to someone. And I like those, but it's always got to be somebody who's like fairly personal and on my level. Right. I would never talk to a publisher that I have no idea who they are by myself. I just don't know what I would feel like super inadequate on it, right? So it's nice, but with the depression thing, I get it, because it can really kind of like slow you down on getting the things done that like you should do, you want to, but like you just don't feel the motivation to. And so definitely having somebody on board helps with that, because it becomes more of like, hey, we have a job to do. Right. And so like, whereas for the most part this is a hobby, right, the podcast part of things for Andrew and I, at the same time, like we don't want it to stay a hobby, right? We would like to really kind of push it into more of a career. My brain would never let me do that on my own. I'm not going to say never. There's miracles out there. I might be able to.
I think you're selling yourself short, buddy, because like you do a great job. Like,
thank you.
You really do. So yeah, you're definitely selling yourself short, but I think you and Andrew make a great team. I'm not saying like split up by any means or anything, but you do a fabulous job. So
yeah, it's the imposter syndrome of doing anything is so strong always. I run into that a lot where even in my games, like just running a game for hire can feel like you just don't belong doing it. And it's like, I've been running games for so long. Why are people paying me? Right. What am I bringing to this? And it's funny because every new game I start, I genuinely think that like it's going terribly. And like I have a Saturday game that I've got 3 great players in it. They're wonderful. I have been, catering it based off of like their backstories and stuff. It is my first fully like 100%. This is a homebrew paid game in my world.
nice.
And I don't know. I was feeling a little weird about it. Not sure how everyone else was feeling about it. I didn't want to ask, right? You don't want to ask. And we got to see like session 4. And one of the players who's on the older side of my players, but not like my oldest player. I think he's like 52 or something like that. He's at the end, he goes, DJ, I just need you to know that this has been the greatest campaign so far that I have ever been a part of. Nice. And I was just like, oh, shoot. You do like this. Okay, cool. All of a sudden I am ready to go and just on fire. The inspiration starts flying, the campaign is like, okay, cool. Now I know where they're going over the next 10 sessions, the next 20 sessions, because all of a sudden, like, he injected that care into me. And it's funny because it keeps happening in my games where I'm nervous, I'm unsure, and then all of a sudden, they leave their review and they're just like, this was such a wonderful experience. I'm like, I don't know if you realize this, but I made it all up the entire time. Those names I didn't remember. The reason I didn't remember them is because I made them up.
No, that's great.
And but people really like that. They like the impromptu improv style of like having a game master where your game can go anywhere
Yeah.
and be anything. And it's just you gotta build yourself up. It's so hard. So
It's funny you brought up the inspiration, because that's really what it took with me. It's like when I had maybe 4 or 5 interviews set up for the next 2 or 3 months,
yeah.
and I'm trying to remember how exactly the sequence went. But since I left my job last week, that's when I've really just sat down, and I felt like, for one, I
Yeah.
had taken 2,000-pound weights and set them on the ground and
Yep.
just walked away from them.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. I completely understand. Like, I relate. Because when I lost that job at first, I mean, for 6 months, or no, sorry, for 23 weeks, that's how long you can draw unemployment, I think. I was devastated. Because that was the 23 weeks that I was trying to find something else. But then all of a sudden, I started to realize, like, I haven't had a panic attack in a while. I am in a better mood. My wife is noticing that, like, I'm not, having like little moments of irritation. I never get irritated at her. It's usually with whatever I'm doing, right?
mhm.
And she kind of noticed the change in me, and she's like, that job was absolutely killing you. And I was like, yeah, I guess I just didn't realize that I was able to mask over it and just kind of like, think about the goal that I wanted for that job. And I didn't realize how bad it was for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, and now all of a sudden I'm working on my own terms running games, and it's like, all right, like, this is good. I'm doing good. So it's not always bad. It feels bad sometimes, but all of a sudden, you start to find something else that's working better for you, and that's the best feeling.
It really is. It's like, I have some other stuff that changed that we can talk about after, but
Yeah.
my train of thought, there goes the ADHD.
Nope, I
I just
100% understand. It happens to me every time I do an interview.
oh, dude, yeah, absolutely, every time. Where was I going with this? There. Trying to backtrack a little bit. Oh, how you said your anxiety and everything
Yeah.
went away. Like, right here in my neck was always tense.
Yeah.
I left my job last Wednesday, and Thursday morning I woke up and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this isn't tense. And, work called me. They're like, well, what would you think of coming back? I'm like, no.
Yeah. I feel great.
And I'm like, this is the best I've felt. And it was only 24 hours later.
Yeah.
So, I can't wait to see what it's like a month from now.
Yeah. Yep.
Hopefully I've got some income coming in, but
Yeah. It's uh looking to start playing. It's great, especially if you like running games. There's this difference that I notice between running a game for friends and running for a game for people who are paying to be there. Um, it is a level of care that is massive. So they really do make an effort to be there every session, right? and they contribute and they want to contribute, and it's just this whole different feeling. Whereas, I run games for my friends. I love my friends. We get sidetracked, right? We'll joke around, we'll have a conversation, maybe they'll pick on me for 20 minutes, because I had to cancel a session or something. And they have license to not take it as seriously, right? Because they're not
Right.
paying for the game, they're fun. The people who are paying are also there for fun, but like they want to play so bad that they're happy to give you money to do so, and they want to have a great experience and to meet strangers. That was my favorite part. I got 40 friends that I get to play with every week, right? Like,
So rad.
yeah. And like they all know me on a fairly personal level at this point. I end my games with "I love you guys, have a good night," like it's fantastic.
Yep.
So it's such a ego boost though sometimes.
But that's a great thing, is because
Yeah.
of what it can do for you. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look into this
Yep.
because I quit running. I shouldn't say I quit running games in 2018. In 2018, I had a full-on, full-bore nervous breakdown. And it was while I was running, oh, shoot, the one with the Sararak, the newer one, not the Temple of
Oh yeah, Tomb of Annihilation.
Tomb of Annihilation.
Yeah.
And I was running it for my friends, and I'm
To
sitting
be
there
fair,
and
that
I'm
one would
reading.
also give me a nervous breakdown.
Maybe it was the game. But no, it's like I was sitting there. We're at the final encounter with the Sararak, and I'm like, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just like, and they're like, dude, are you all right? And I'm like, no. I'm like, something's happening. And I had the worst panic attack I've ever had in my life. And one of the guys that was playing knew the module, so he took over.
Yeah.
And I felt so horrible, and I haven't gone back to it since. And now I've got a group of creators that want me to run Weird Frontiers for them. And I'm like, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And I've got a group of 10 that I'm going to be running 5e for.
Nice.
So that'll be interesting to see how it goes. 10. Yeah.
That's a lot.
They got me back into gaming after my breakdown and everything. And there's a lot of other baggage that went that I didn't play games for about 15 years. And I never realized how much I missed it until they got me into this West Marches campaign they were running.
Yeah.
And then I was hooked again. And now I have like 8 bookshelves full of books through my house because I'm a wicked collector of books.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
I'm starting to get there. I'm starting to get there. I have one almost full bookshelf. I've got one shelf that's just dedicated to like minis and stuff. But love to get more. And so like when you sent me that little care package,
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I
was so excited because one, I mean, you know this, just doing these interviews and stuff, when people are like, hey, I'd like to send you a thing. Yes, please. I absolutely, it's something that I might never look at without you. And so like all of a sudden, I have something in front of me, and it doesn't happen very often, right? Being on the lower side. But like, oh my goodness. The first thing that we were ever sent was for a TTRPG that we need to still have an interview for. They just had a little bit of a, change up. They, had to push it off. But they sent me their book, and it was Everyday Heroes. And for those who don't know what Everyday Heroes is, it is a 5th edition hack for modern, gameplay. And it's a really beautiful, well-written book. So I'm waiting to get them to go, hey, let's let's schedule that that gameplay and interview again. But that was the first thing that I ever received. And then I received a couple of like small things, mostly PDFs. It's usually
Yep.
PDFs because that's the easy thing for people to send. And I get it. It's what I mostly use, right? I love to use books when I get the chance. But if I'm doing a paid game specifically, I'm probably going to, be referencing a PDF at that moment because I've got it all bookmarked out. So whenever somebody sends me like genuine, I can hold it in my hand, beautiful books, I'm so happy. And you sent some that I've been, well, you sent one specifically that I've been eyeing for a little while, and it's because Adam Muskevich on
I
TikTok,
already know where you're going with this one.
he has, for the past 6 months, every time I bring up Gen Con, what should I do at Gen Con? He always says, go to this hotel lobby or this whatever, this suite. This is where all of the DCC guys are going to be. And you need to go hang out with them because they're some of my best friends. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do that. And so like I've been meaning to like look into it, and then you popped up and you're like, hey, I'd like to send you a few things. And I was like, oh yeah, cool, awesome. And open it up, and there it is. There's the big old DCC book, which is massive, by the way.
It is. It's that thing. If you held on to that and jumped into a swimming pool, you would sink.
Oh yeah, it's
You know,
huge. But what do you expect from a dungeon crawl, game? It's going to
Yeah.
be full of stuff, and I've been reading through it a little bit. I haven't quite got there yet, but that's one that I'm really excited to run at like a friend party to kind of like dip my toes into the DCC world, because I hear good things about it all the time. And then of course the various like zines to protect to not protect it, to go with it. I was really excited about. And then of course you had the Luchadors one,
so much fun,
which looks amazing. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome, man. Like I told you, like when I saw you on TikTok, I watched a bunch of your videos, and I'm like, this dude right here is on to something. Like, I don't know what it was. It's like, are you a big Star Wars fan?
I love it. Yeah, I got.
So you know the scene when Darth Vader sees the. Oh, nice. I don't know if you can see all my posters back there and everything. I've got a bounty hunter one.
Yeah.
Which hand am I trying to use here? Rogue One, and God, I'm bad at pointing at stuff behind me with the camera.
I gotta give a shout out to Master Allen from Level Up Savers. While this was a present from my wife, that's where we got this, and it's amazing.
It's badass.
Yeah. So.
But you know that moment in The Empire Strikes Back when they see the power generator on Hoth?
Yeah.
And Admiral Ozzel's like, this could be anything in one of 100 systems. He's like, that's it. That is how I felt when I saw you, man. And I'm like, this guy's fucking onto something. And it was before I knew you had the podcast or anything. I'm just like, my spidey sense said, send this guy some awesome stuff. And Crime Fighting Luchadors is one of my favorite games. We actually stream it roughly once a month. And this past weekend, we started a new season, for lack of it really is a new season. And I am wearing the mask of the Goat Man that a gentleman by the name of Eric Bloat designed for
That's awesome.
a new zine coming out for Crime Fighting Luchadors. And it is called Lucha Libre Extravaganza. And it's got a bunch of like special masks, but it makes you bleat like a goat when you're wearing it. So the whole fucking stream, I put one of the guys into a Camel clutch, and he had been smoking a cigarette, and I'm like, smoking's bad. And he was just like, and that was the general reaction from everyone playing. They're like, holy shit, this guy can actually make goat sounds.
That's awesome.
It is such a fun game, and it's very easy to learn, to build a character and just get right into. So what upcoming games are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't.
So
I could keep talking about all
yeah,
those games I sent for the next month because
yeah. There's a few. Um, so our journey started with us going, hey, we played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. And the OGL controversy had happened, and that's when we started playing other games.
yep.
We jumped into Cypher System. We loved it. Amazing system. Very fun. And then we started to kind of like try a few others. So the whole thing was we want to try every game we can, right?
Right.
And use that in all of the games that we run, whether it's going to be Dungeons and Dragons or it's going to be Cypher or it's going to be Pathfinder or Call of Cthulhu, right? Use the tools that we learned from other games. There is one specific game that I am beyond excited about. And we actually did an interview with the creator, Camilla, of it. There was a really big, like huge TTRPG Kickstarter that came out around the time that we were doing ours. I think it was right after, and it was called Astro Prisma. And it's by Crescent Chimera, and it is it started out as a solo RPG, which I wasn't super interested in doing solo RPGs, mostly because I haven't really dove into any yet. I have a few that I need to from Spencer Campbell from Gilla RPG that are really beautiful and are really, as far as I know, everyone says they're amazing. I just haven't started yet. I haven't done any journaling games or anything. That's more of Andrew's expertise. But her art and like her campaign was so good that I was drawn to it and I was watching it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Couple hours in, Andrew, she raised $10,000 already. Oh wow, that's crazy. Keep going with it. And we just kept updating each other. And then she goes, we are going to make this a solo or duo so you can play with a second person. And
Oh,
that
nice.
was the moment that I was like, cool, I am backing at your highest level. And because I am going to play this with my wife, whether my wife knows or not. she's gonna be playing it with me. And it was really cool, and like it was just exciting, right? I was like, cool, this is gonna be awesome. It's beautiful, it'll look great on my shelf. And that was going to be it. And then I was like, hey, Camilla, do you want to come on? Can we talk to you about it? And in that interview, I was talking to, like, we were talking about it, and Camilla was saying, like, yeah, I designed the ship combat, and I designed the ship customization, and I designed the universe building so that you can use it in other games.
Oh,
And I was like, that is amazing. That is such a good idea, because like one of the worst parts, not worst parts, but one of the hardest parts of playing a space oriented game, especially like Starfinder or something like that, is having to create a universe,
mm.
right? And creating a universe is hard, and that comes from somebody who just did a season 1 of a Space Odyssey, you know, actual play where I had to come up with a whole universe. I'm hoping that I can get all of that stuff in time for season 2, because I want to integrate a lot of the ship building mechanics and like the ship combat mechanics and all of that stuff into the Eye of the Tyrant. But not only that, I want to play this, play it through. And it's like a faction game. And we were talking to her, and she's like, oh, yeah, I was super inspired by Skyrim and Fallout. And, she's like, I was disappointed in Starfield. And I was like, we all were, but, we played it anyway. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And so Astro Prisma looks incredible. The other one that I am really excited for is, it's funny because it's like, even though it's my co-host, it has nothing to do with me. It still kind of seems like a bias, but I was there for the development of Battle School, Andrew's TTRPG, where it's all about like your military cadets who have been whisked away to a military installation going to learn to become good soldiers. It is very inspired by Ender's Game.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, if it was an inspiration.
Yeah, very much inspired by Ender's Game, but different, right? It takes place in this universe that we just finished a campaign using Cypher System in, and
Nice.
so like it's nice to have some familiarity with it. But the system is a lot of fun. It's like a 2d6 type game, right? You know, you roll 2d6, you try to get the, you know, DC, and it's all about tactics and paying attention to what your teammates are doing and what decisions they're making, because it increases the difficulty of the shared task. So if someone wants to do something really cool and selfish, they can, but they're going to make the difficulty harder for everyone else. And it's a lot of fun. We're probably gonna play it at Gen Con. Well, not at Gen Con, but around around Indianapolis with the various private parties that are going to be going on. So
nice. That sounds like a lot of fun.
I know there's
I was
others,
actually
but
checking the page out before we jumped on here, and I'm like, wow, it looked like it just gave off that Ender's Game vibe, and I'm like, I'm gonna need to get this.
Yep.
So
it's, you know, for it being his first foray into publishing, he did a really good job. And he's going to be posting his backer kit soon. He's working on getting it all figured out so that way he can continue fundraising and, you know, do the fulfillment side of things. And it's so good. And so like he deserves so much for it.
awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, that's let's see. Oh, and of course, there's going to be Matt Colville's game. That's exciting. Matt.
What is the name of that system?
Currently it is MCDM something RPG. They don't have an official name yet.
I gotcha.
Yeah. So they basically have just been calling it MCDM, you know, whatever, for a while. And I love the mind of Matt Colville, as you know, does a lot of the community, right?
Yep.
And I'm just excited to see what a ground up system from him will look like. That's going to be super fun. And then finally, probably Daggerheart, because that's probably going to be my off of 5th edition from. And get them to try other things, right? Because it's you know, the Critical Role people, so like it'll be easier to kind of like, so you know, there's other games out there. I'm not saying stop playing Dungeons and Dragons. I love playing Dungeons and Dragons. I just want to play other things with you.
Yeah, and it's gonna, like, that's the one thing I've tried to explain, because I've got a lot of my friends that are just like, nope, I only want to play 5e, and I'm like, but there's so much you can learn from other systems to bring back to D&D.
Yeah,
that it's just bonkers how much is out there. And when I discovered the indie scene, it was like seeing my fiance for the first time all over again. I just fell in love with it. And yeah, that's really the only way I can put that. It was like seeing my fiance for the first time again, and I'm like, I'm gonna marry her. And now I am like basically married to the indie scene. I mean, that's what a lot of my interviews are.
Yep.
But
yeah, there's so many games out there. You know, whether it's going to be a game that's, you know, uses the Powered by the Apocalypse system, so things like Thirsty Sword Lesbians and Avatar the Legends, Kids on Bikes, Kids on Brooms, or whether it's a completely like new system, like most of Gila RPGs is using the Lumen 2.0 system.
Write that one down too.
Yeah, it's there's one. Well, I'll actually get to it. I think it's on my list that I prepared.
Oh, nice.
Let's double check. Might be. Yes, it is. Coming in at a hot number 5. But it's funny because Spencer, we were talking to him, his approach to not video games, to games, to TTRPGs was a lot different than a lot of people because he's never played Dungeons and Dragons. He actually started playing TTRPGs doing a Tales from the Loop, like Powered by the Apocalypse, like game. So he has a completely different approach to designing his games than a lot of games. And so I love the different perspectives and the different mechanics and all of the smart things that people have done with their games, because you can never really truly get bored if you have a library of all of these insane little games, whether it's something like Morkborg or whatever. It calls them out because there's just so many.
Yeah.
Girl by Moonlight, which is like your Sailor Moon magical girl TTRPG. My wife got me that one for my birthday. I was there when she picked it out. So yeah, I love it. It's the best.
Nice. Well, you just created the perfect segue into our final little bit for today.
Yeah.
Our top 5 lists of our favorite game systems. And I went in kind of no particular order, but you said you went from 5 to 1. So I'm gonna try to do that and hopefully not mess it up, because yeah. All right. How about we do we'll go each do our 5, then our 4, 3, 2,
absolutely
1. All right. So I'll let you start with your number 5.
So number 5 comes from Gila RPG. It is a game called Hunt. And Hunt is a game that nobody needs to know the rules ahead of time on. It's beautiful, it's well put together, but it is the story of between 2 and 5 medieval magical knights who are on a journey to restore their destroyed order of knights, and they have to go on a quest through the woods, deep into the woods, to defeat a monster and bring it back to feast, and kind of just rebuild their failing order. It's really cool because there's different kinds of knights, and different stuff, but the fun and interesting mechanic is they don't roll any dice. It is essentially a diceless game. It is cool. Not fully, but essentially. And they are building this story together. And so you go around and you ask questions such as, why did the order fall? What caused it? What is the creature you're looking after, right? Or looking for? You walk out and you see a thing fly above you. What is it? Right? Like, it's that kind of game. And so for the most part of it, it's a lot of role play. But where the game mechanics come in is each of the knights pick a forbidden weapon from the vault of the knighthood. And there are trade-offs to using that weapon. So downsides to it, such as, every time you use its special power, you mutate, or like something terrible happens to you or someone or whatever, or you lose memories, or you decide what that horrible thing's going to be. Really cool, because, you have people who are like, oh, I don't know if I want to use this. And then you have other people who are like, we're going to restore this order, so I'm going to destroy whatever I can, even if it destroys me, right? The order is what matters. And it's just fun. Real combat doesn't happen until the final scene, which is when you go to fight the monster, and you're on a grid. I think it's a 4x4 grid. So it's a small grid, and you have a set movement and damage type, and it's really hard and really good. Hunt.
That sounds incredibly fun.
It is.
Well, my number 5 is one you're probably familiar with, but it's Blades in the Dark.
I am
don't know if you've
familiar. I
ever
haven't
played it.
played it yet. That's one of our next ones.
It is like, well, it's a co-op game, but it's dice based, and you either get a success or a failure when you roll. But I've had so much fun, and they have this mechanic in there called the flashback system.
Yeah.
And I was playing in a game, and my guy was basically like Captain Boomerang from Suicide Squad.
Yep.
And we had to go take somebody out. And we go into this building, and a cop walked, or what they call blue coats in Blades in the Dark, comes walking out of his apartment, and I was an ex-blue coat. So everyone's like in our party's freaking out. And I'm like, I want to do a flashback to where I worked with this guy. We were partners before.
Yeah.
And so I got rid of him and all that. We went and did the job, but then I got haunted by the ghost of the person that we killed. But it kind of fell to what you were saying about the forbidden weapon. I pushed my guy a little too much, and he broke a little bit and then got haunted. But it is such a fun game. It's gothic horror, well, kind of gothic horror, but it's a gothic style game, and it is so much fun.
Yep, Blades in the Dark and all of the games kind of based around that system is one that I'm very excited to officially get into. Andrew's actually going to be running it for our next friend campaign.
Nice.
So I'm very excited about that. Well, my number 4 is one that I've gotten to play a couple times, but I really, really enjoyed it. And it was the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games. So specifically Edge of the Empire. Very fun. I mean, I was living my little Star Wars fantasy, right? I bought all the dice. I bought all the books. I was like, absolutely. That was what
yeah.
It's one that I don't want to run. I just want to be in. I can run it, right? I know the lore. I could easily, but I want to be in it.
That's so funny. Because that's one of my favorite games too. It's not on my list, but it's up there.
It's just a really fun like dice resolution system. I love special dice, right? I love dice that are going to be different than the others. So like I like fate dice because they have like the plus and the
plus minus and
stuff. And some of the old Star Wars games kind of worked that way as well with dark side, light side and stuff. It's beautiful. So yep.
Well, it's funny. I'll tell a quick story about that, and then I'll get on to my number 4. I was playing in a campaign, and I was playing a Wookiee that I had named Tick. T'_YK, and I was getting chased by a bounty hunter because I had messed up this Imperial something or other, and they were after me, and I got caught in a fireball and became a hairless Wookiee. And
great.
It was quite interesting because everywhere I'd go after that, they're looking at me like, what is wrong with you? But my number 4 is Call of Cthulhu.
Call of Cthulhu is a really good one. That almost made my list.
I love the H.P. Lovecraft mythos. I don't think he was that swell of a guy himself, but the world that he created is so insane, and I love that game. So I'm going to let you. I could go on for hours about Call of Cthulhu. I've got behind me here a whole shelf full of all the books, and
I came real close to having that be on the list. But I really like Mothership. So Mothership kind of takes a lot of what Call of Cthulhu has. It simplifies it a little bit, so that way you can run a pickup game super easily, right? And I'm finding the convenience of being able to run a pickup game is one of my favorites, because you the best way to introduce someone to a game is like you're at a party and like, not a party, but you have people over and you're like, hey, I got a game I want to try with you. And it's real easy. You can download an app on your phone, make your character right now. Right.
Yeah. I've got it on my phone and it is crazy.
It's such a good app too. And it's wonderful. The horror vibes are really good on it. Yep. The horror vibes are really good on it. The resolutions on it are really good. I just, it's fun. And we got to have Cameron from the Panic Table run it for us. And if you don't know, the Panic Table is like the mothership actual play podcast. And it's just because Cameron really liked it and he's like, I'm absolutely going to make a podcast about this. And he happened to have worked in a studio where he's like was able to convince the people he worked with. He's like, hey, what if we built a beautiful actual play set and you let me run this game?
Wow. That is cool.
Yep. And I don't know if it was just, having someone who knows the game so well inside and out run it for us, but it was super good. I'm actually bummed because a few weeks before that we were at Chaosium Con and we went to dinner with a bunch of people, Adam Muskevich and a few of his friends, and like we're just having a good time, and then like we're all right, see ya. And later, after we had our episode with the Panic Table, Adam's like, you realize like you've met the creator of Mothership, right?
Oh no.
I was like, no, you didn't say this is the creator of Mothership. That would have been a great introduction.
Oh man.
So yeah,
that's too funny.
It's good. So
I've actually got Sean coming on later, I think in September.
Oh, okay.
I've got Sean McCoy coming on, so I can't wait.
He probably wouldn't even like, because we were like, we were just hanging out with Adam, right? Like, is just having fun, wasn't thinking business, wasn't thinking about business at all.
That's too funny. Let's see. Number 3 for me. I'm an old guy. You said you're 35?
32.
32. Okay, so I've got a lot of years on you. I'm almost 50. And I started out with the Red Box with my brother. And so for me, Old School Essentials is one of those games that just wets my whistle, so to speak. It's got a great third-party license, and there are so many amazing adventure zines, weapon zines, item zines, you name it, that have come out from just third-party creators. And I love that game. I don't know what else to say about it. It's the old school vibe to it, takes me back to like my brother is still sitting at the table with me.
While I've never played it, I have heard good things about it, and I love any system that has a ton of just supplement material provided by people that keeps it alive and going, right? Dungeons and Dragons is that way, but like, there's a ton of games where it's like, oh cool, I can never run out of content because there is so much content out there for this. It's beautiful. I will have to add that to my list to try. Well,
number two
is a recent addition to my life. I bought it from a mutual on TikTok who runs it's Midnight Tavern. He runs like a little TikTok shop where he sells games. He also sells them on the internet, right? But he, TikTok has all these coupons that they'll do, especially if you had never bought anything from the TikTok shop before, which I hadn't. And so I went to go pick up I wanted to get Cyberpunk Augmented, which I don't know if you've seen anything with that, but it's beautiful. It's just like a little pamphlet game. And it's like all included. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. So I wanted to pick that up, and he had Fabula Ultima on there, and I was like, oh yeah, I want to pick that up. So I got like the press start adventure from him. And then I had, because I was looking at the like full rule book as well. And I bought the full rule book, and then I bought the press start adventure from him with Cyberpunk Augmented. Fabula Ultima is everything that child me wanted out of this sort of experience.
Nice.
Because I grew up, the first games that I beat as a kid were Final Fantasy, specifically Final Fantasy 7. The year for me was 1999. It had came out in 1997, I think. I had just gotten a PlayStation 1. I didn't have a memory card. Like, it was so much fun. I was like, this is great. I could barely read. By the end of it, I could read great because, you know, it pushed me to want to learn to read. So I knew what was going on, and I wasn't just roaming aimlessly like I did when I played Earthbound as a kid. Still don't even know what Earthbound is about, honestly. And it replicates that super well. And it's funny because my buddy Drew, not Andrew, but my other buddy Drew, was picking on me because like I really like Final Fantasy. Based a whole campaign on Final Fantasy. And then I got this and I was like, all right, everybody, you're at my housewarming party. I have this really cool press start adventure. We're going to spend the next 4 hours doing this. And I taught them how to do it. And I was like, this is great. I love this. I love running this. Would love to play this. But it just feels like a JRPG because you are like taking turns. So it's like it's a back and forth, but like it's an even back and forth. So like you have player characters, NPC, player characters, NPC. And so like it's just a back, it's, you don't feel like oh cool, everything's weighted to one side, because every game master ever has had an entire party roll super well on initiative in Dungeons and Dragons. And it's like, and they just wipe out either everything or like most of everything. And it's just like, cool. Well, that really kind of deflated the entire encounter. You don't have that in Fabula Ultima. So that's really nice. It's a super fun system. It's very easy to learn. So that's it. That's my that's my number two.
You have given me 3 games I need to check out with Fabula Ultima, Hunt, and Astro Prisma.
Yeah.
So
I just got the PDF for Astro Prisma, the early access PDF. It's just as beautiful as I was expecting it to be.
That's awesome.
So,
well, my number 2 is a little bit of a cheat because it's actually 3 games that are all derived from one system. But it's Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classics, and then X Crawl Classics, which is still on its way out. But the system that Joseph Goodman built with everyone for those systems, I mean, Jim Wampler made Mutant Crawl Classics, and Brendan LaSalle made X Crawl Classics, but the dice chain is what does it for me. The weird dice, like what I had sent you. And it just makes it, that system is so much fun because it's a great combo of like old school gaming mixed with some new school ideas. And like X Crawl Classics, you play it's do you remember, or did you ever play the NES game Smash TV?
I did not.
But if you look it up after we're done, this is or even while we're on, that is what this game is like. It's like taking Escape from New York and stuff and mixing it with Smash TV, where you're basically going through these different battle areas and you win prizes and money and all of that. But the Goodman games are so amazing. Like you're gonna, when you really dig into DCC, you're gonna fall in love.
I'm very excited about it. Man, this looks so familiar. It was not one of the ones I had on the Super Nintendo, but I'm gonna have to watch some gameplay of this.
It's funny as hell because it'll be like this big head that'll come out on this tank, and it'll be like saying like win prizes, and you've got to blow it up.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So number one.
My number one, this is one that is probably going to change often. And it's going to, depending on what it is that I am playing the most of. But as a game master and as a player, Cypher System by Monty Cook Games is currently in my top spot. If you've played Numenera Numenera, that's pretty much it. If you played Numenera, it uses the same system. So Numenera came first, and the kind of CSRD for that became Cypher System, and it is great. It's really easy to teach people because the rolling is super simple. Everything rolls the exact same way, and everything is on a difficulty from 0 to 10. And you take the difficulty level, you multiply that by 3. And so 0 is always going to be 0. Difficulty of 1, you need to roll a 3 or higher. Difficulty 10, you need to roll a 30 or higher. Obviously, you can't roll a 30 or higher on a d20. And there's ways to like lower difficulties and stuff. But that's what I love about it, is that you as a player have autonomy to control what is happening with you, with your character, with the story, by essentially like spending resources that are your HP, they're your stat pools, and like trying harder. For example, Andrew ran a big long, not long, it was a year-long campaign for us in his world. And every time we had a boss battle, it felt really rewarding. I would, I was mostly kind of like a melee jack of all trades type character. We had somebody who was kind of like more of the magic person. We had someone who was more of like the talking person, and then we had someone who was just like the flat out like strong warrior type. My character was a little mix of kind of like all of them in a way. And with it, you can apply something called effort. So like you get a point of effort every time you every time you take it in your tier ups, which is the leveling of Cypher System. And effort reduces the difficulty of a task one whole step. So if it was a difficulty 7 task, you had to roll a 21 or higher. But if you apply a level of effort, it becomes a difficulty 6 task. So you only have to roll an 18 or higher. And so the more effort you have up to 6, you can drop that. And then there's training and there's specialization. And so essentially you have the tools as a character in this world to defend yourself if you are willing to work hard enough at it, to hit really hard if you're willing to risk your life for it, which I always was. I would use everything I had, and I would often come out of boss battles nearly dead after just delivering a decisive blow on the boss. And that feels good. It feels good to be in control. Why I like running it as a game master is I don't roll any dice, and it keeps me 100% honest, because I just set the difficulties and I say, okay, this is going to be a difficulty 6. They'll go through the rolling process. They roll to defend themselves. They roll to hit. So essentially the players are always in control, right? Even though they're not really in control. The dice are in control.
Right.
Because you can still fail if you're not able to reduce that task down to 0. And I've seen it a couple times where they use up all their resources. They roll a natural 1. I get a free Game Master Intrusion, which is a whole other layer. Game Master Intrusion is a sudden complication in the story that gives the players experience usually. Natural 1 doesn't give an experience, but if they're going through a dungeon or they're going through a thing, I can say, Game Master Intrusion, things have been a little too easy for you, soldiers show up. Or Game Intrusion, that way is sealed, locked, like welded shut, or whatever, right? And so you can kind of like herd cattle, or herd cats mostly, into where you want. But the fun thing is they don't like, they can either take the experience point and then give one to someone else, or they can say, no, I'm going to spend an experience point and the game master intrusion isn't going to happen. And it's like, oh, all right, well, they're willing to spend the resources. That's fine. And then finally, there is player intrusions, which is similar, but like it's something that is going to help them. For example, the warrior has one where a random ally from their past can just randomly show up if it makes sense and the game master allows it. And we did that in a ship battle where like we were getting annoyed because the guy kept going into camouflage and hiding in dust clouds, and we're like, no, we're not doing this anymore. Player intrusion. We were helped us, and all of a sudden, we succeeded. So long-winded reason for why I really like Cypher System.
But you can tell you really like it, and I definitely want to play in your learn to play game. That is for sure.
Yeah,
because that sounds like a lot of fun.
It really is.
So, number one for me is one of the darkest and most brutal games out there, Morkborg. I absolutely love the system that Pelle Nielsen built. And not only did he make a great game, there are so many third-party creators that have just enriched that system with games that they have put out. I could go on for hours about this game. But, right now there's a Kickstarter running for Berserker, which is a Nordic-themed Morkborg game. The same company did Ronin last year. There's Corpborg, which is you're basically playing in like a hellscape version of Mad Men. And then there's Goblin Gonzo that has you're playing goblins. And Pirate Borg is probably one of my top Morkborg games.
I came so close to picking up Cyborg yesterday.
Good,
because it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, and that's on my list of like ones that I want on my shelf, but also to run because I love cyberpunk. So
but it is just such a savage and brutal system. It's like in the original Morkborg, you can take like a person's femur and attack with it and do 1d4 damage.
Yeah.
So I love it.
It's got some of the best art too. Like it's just chaotic as the game is, right? And that's what's just, I love a game where you can look at the art and go, I have a good feeling for how this game is going to go. And I think Morkborg is one that does that super well.
Yeah. It kind of weirded me out at first because I was brought up in a very Christian household. And I saw that book and I'm like, man, my family that I went through the satanic panic with would eat this book alive.
Yeah, you got actual like Baphomet on the back. My wife was like, I don't know if I want this one in the house. I'm like, it's just a game, don't worry about it.
Oh man. But yeah, it was the same thing. And then I read it and I saw all the third-party stuff out for it. And I think it will always hold a special place in my heart because it's just so fun, fast-paced, furious, brutal. And yeah, you should get Cyborg.
Yeah, it's one I'm going to pick up. I've wanted to wait until Gen Con to see if I can, have a situation where I can buy games and have conversations with the creators of games so I can try and schedule them on the podcast. Because it just, sure, you can walk up to any creator and say, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? But like, you don't really leave an impression if you don't buy anything at their booth as well. It feels a little like, I just want to have you on for content, and that's not what
Yeah,
I
I
want.
can see where
Yeah.
you're coming from. I'm just going to be screwed because I've bought everything that's out from work forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got Pele coming on in September 2nd, I believe is the date I've got him booked for. But, you know, I've interviewed so many of those guys
Yeah.
that are third-party creators for it, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that was all I had, my friend. I will let you get going. We can wrap this
Yeah.
up. And yeah, folks that watched in the future, have a wonderful day. DJ, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
I
for
know
having
my
me.
hunch was right. And yeah, you're going to do some great stuff, buddy. So
Thank you so much. I really
oh,
appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. And have a great day, folks. And thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this interview, like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And I'd love to have you tune in and ask some questions with folks. Have a great day.